if you're investing.
Investors will.
The podcast for all things real estate investing.
So, Jason, it's great having you with us today. And thanks again for joining us on this episode of Investor One on One, where we talk to the top industry leaders from across the country. For those tuning in, Jason is the founder and chief connector of the Collective Genius, a mastermind of 200 elite real estate investors who collaborate to share strategies and resources that enable each other to thrive in any market, maximize their profits, and achieve financial freedom. So let's begin. To start off, Jason, can you tell us a little bit about how you first got into real estate and what inspired you to pursue this path?
Yeah, so just a couple of things. I know there's a lot of times you got dated information on the internet, but we've been around for about 14 years, and 200 members was a lot of those years ago. So we're right now over about 700 plus members inside of our organization, and so. How did I get into real estate? That's a long story, but glad to share it. So I'm 52, I've been in real estate for 25 plus years, but when I was 29, I got very ill, super sick. And I was working for corporate America, and was at a point where I was so sick I was on disability. I was like really kind of fighting for my life, but I started to get better, and I was on, like I said, on short-term disability, and it was about to run out, and I was going to have to go back to work, and was really, really kind of struggling physically, and just wasn't ready to run the way that I knew it would be required of me, and so. I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, and so I was refinancing my house. Figured I would get a good rate before I couldn't have a verification of employment, and so the gentleman rolled up to do my refinance to get my documents, and he was in a black on black on black 911 Carrera Targa Porsche. And he was young. He was like, late 20s like me. I was like, "How'd you get that?" And he said, "Doing mortgages." And I was like, "Well, do you guys have a position at your firm?" And he said, "I don't know. I'm not the owner, but let me check." And he called me the next day and said, "Yeah, we have a position open if you want." And I was like, "All right, I'm gonna go for it." So that's really kind of the way at that point that I got into the real estate, the finance and real estate business back in very early 2000s. I took that position, and soon realized that I was way better as a human being when I had to get up and kind of get my own paycheck, if you will, eat what you kill. And that's how it started, man. Yeah.
That's amazing. Very inspiring. And, I love doing these interviews and asking this question because everyone has such an incredible story. Thank you for sharing that. Now, you've
Sure.
built something very, very incredible with the Collective Genius, and I'm happy to hear that, you guys have 700 plus investors now. Can you share more about what you do today with the Collective Genius and the impact it's making in the real estate investing community?
Yeah, so really what we're a peer-to-peer community, or a mastermind, if you will. And what we do is we bring together a lot of the top investors from across the country, again, 700 investors who, on a quarterly basis, we bring them together, and they share their systems, their strategies, their resources, their connections. They lend money, borrow money from each other. They partner on deals, and it's just all underpinned in a set of core values that's primarily driven from go giving, because that's really what makes it tick. Is to be in CG, you got to be a net giver, not a net taker, and it's above and beyond just the business component of it as well. Or we are an organization that's going to make you take a look at who you're becoming along your entrepreneurial journey, as a man, as a woman, as a spouse, as a mother, as a father, and as a leader. And so, we are looking to be involved in making better human beings, not just helping people make money. So that's kind of what we do, you know?
For sure. So you've been in
Yeah.
the industry for a long, long time.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm an old
for
man.
Nah, you're good. You're young. For the people starting out though, if you were to start over from start, like fresh, with limited capital, what would be your first steps to break into the real estate investing world? in today's world?
My first steps would be to go and work for someone for a year, or if, yeah, at least for a year, if not more. That'd be the best education you can get. You'd be getting paid to get educated, when usually the other way around. You get educated, you usually have to write a check. But I would say that in this case, that's what I would do. I would go and learn the business rather than try to just get out and beat my brains out and get clobbered trying to do it on your own. I would want that first year of kind of working in someone else's business that did what I want to do.
For sure. That's some really helpful advice. And as we know in real estate, everything is connection and, mentors and learning how the system works. So, how important is collaboration in real estate investing for you? And what are some practical ways an investor can build a strong network?
Yeah, I mean, that is what we do, collaboration. If you notice, let's say we bring investors together and they share their systems, their strategies, their resources, lend money, borrow money, do joint ventures together. Like it's all collaboration. So, how important it is to me, I don't know that it's a matter of importance. It's a matter of being critical. Because ultimately, when you collaborate with people, typically what you're doing is you're shortening your success timelines, right? If I were to try to do something myself, it might take this long, but if I'm collaborating with others, then it might take only this long. And so, um, that is critical. We actually, our organization is driven by what we call the six C's, and one of them is collaboration. There's content, there's culture, there's contribution, there's caliber, there's collaboration, and that's really what drives organization. And collaboration is one of those C's.
For sure. I love that. The six C's. Definitely going to make that
Mhm.
into a reel. We at Motivated Sellers work with over 2,000 active investors today at different levels. What advice do you have for investors looking to scale their operations efficiently? And what systems or strategies have you seen work best for taking a business to the next level?
I mean, yeah, that's a big question. I think if you're going to scale, you probably need to go about half as fast as you think you do. I've been working with a lot of entrepreneurs for 14 years, and most people either try to go too fast, um, and most people don't really focus. That's probably the two biggest pieces of advice, where the focus thing is huge. You get somebody, they flip a few houses a month and they think they got it all figured out. No, you got a hobby. You don't really have a business, right? Like it, guys and gals that run real businesses, I mean, they're flipping hundreds of homes a year, or multiple hundreds of homes a year, 30, 40 deals a month. And in order to do that, it really becomes less about the house and really more about building the business and building the people who are going to run it. um, and so, I think it's great to have a big long-term goal and objective, but ultimately that getting there is comprised of small single steps. And the thing that I would say that is probably most valuable is in scaling the business. And not a lot of people who are entrepreneurs have, like, you're even familiar with this. But the thing that I think is most valuable is having an operating system inside of the business. And what is that operating system? What does that mean? An operating system is ensuring that, one, you have a clear vision, right? If you have a clear vision, that means you need to have a clear focus on what you need to do to accomplish that vision. And thirdly, you need to have an implementation process to ensure that you get those things done. And underneath all of that, right, are the meetings, cadences, metrics, that need to be paid attention to. There's a cadence of meetings that you should have with your team and your key leaders, even if it's just you and an assistant, right? There's a cadence or there's a list of numbers that you should know. If you think you're going to grow a big business and not understand numbers and pay attention to them, it's probably not going to happen. Um, I know I can't share my screen right now, but if I could, like right now, I have dashboards, dashboards up on the screen with tons of metrics and graphs and spreadsheets and the P&L statement and like if you're gonna, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs think they're gonna scale without really, oh, I'm a visionary, I don't need to pay, I don't gotta pay attention to details. That is just nonsense. Either when you first start out, you don't typically have an operations person. And so you do have to pay attention to the details until you get a director of ops or a COO or what have you. And so, but again, the biggest thing is having a system to scale and a system to scale and like for example EOS, which is an entrepreneurial operating system, or like someone in our space who's very well known for this is a guy named Gary Harper from Sharper Solutions, also a Collective Genius member, where they help you establish your big goals, determine what your focuses are, create an implementation structure, and then there's a cadence of meetings that have to take place in order to drive that execution. There's a set of numbers, KPIs, metrics that need to be paid attention to in order to be able to figure out are we on target or off target on our goals. And so you must, like, if you're new and thinking about growing a business and scaling it, you have to go read um like e like you have to go read the book Rocket Fuel, or the book that EOS has out about their operating system, or Rise by Gary Harper. You got to go read one of those books, because that's really the key to scaling a business, right? Really scaling a business.
I have a really solid approach to scaling, and I'll for sure check out those books. So thanks again for sharing. So now let's talk about portfolios. What's the best way to build a portfolio that can ultimately create financial freedom?
I mean, I think the best way to do it is it requires discipline. And that means picking a strategy, not like, okay, I've got two Airbnbs and six single family rentals, and I've got a 20 unit multifamily. And like, when I say a strategy is, okay, I'm going to buy two single family homes a month for 5 years and get to 100 doors. And when I'm at 100 doors, if it's been the right time, I'm going to sell 40 of them, take all of the appreciation that I had gotten during that 5 years, and I'm going to pay down how much ever debt that carries on the remaining like 60 doors. That's a strategy, right? Um, and so then you look up and you're like, okay, that means I need to make the income that will put me in a position to buy two a month. And and so I think number one, you need a strategy. Number two, I wouldn't even think about building wealth. This is where a lot of I'm gonna go completely against the grain with this. I wouldn't even consider trying to figure out how to build wealth until you figure out how to build a massive active income. Because if you build a big active income, the passive part of it, which I hate to even use that word. We can have a whole nother conversation about that, but let's call it the wealth part of it, is going to almost take care of itself. And so now you're probably, well, what does that mean? Like, if you're starting a business and let's say you're flipping some houses or whatever, and you're making 100 grand a year flipping houses, the last thing that you need to do is go and try and start buying rentals. Get that income to 300, to 500, right? To 750. So let's say you got to a point where you're making 750 grand a year, and you can live, after taxes, maybe you're sitting on 450, and you're living on 200. You got $250,000, because let's say it depends on where you're at in the country, right? There's Kansas and then there's California. So for this example, let's use Kansas. For 200 grand, you have a nice house, nice cars, put your kids in private schools and go on vacations, nice vacations, right?
Sure.
So you got an extra 250 grand a year left after paying taxes. You got a nice lifestyle, and now you got extra 250 grand a year that you can use to go and start getting into the wealth bucket. I wouldn't even get into the wealth bucket first. I would build personal cash reserves. prior to even getting the wealth bucket. It's big income to the point where that income exceeds your what you need to live. Secondarily, I would take the surplus cash and begin to build personal reserves for yourself and your business, right? And then I would go, only then would I go to the wealth bucket. Because here's the reality of it. If you're just getting kind of scraping by and you go to start buying some houses and life throws you a curveball, and rest assured it's going to throw you one, if not many. You don't have any money because you're not making much and you've tried to go buy some rentals and they're not going to make any, right? You don't buy a rental property for to spit off 200 grand or $200 a month. It doesn't really happen like that, right? The real win on rental properties, it's a long-term strategy where you cover your expenses, the mortgage gets paid down, which doesn't go in your pocket. And eventually, the houses have enough equity to where you can sell them, or and right, like so. Make the big income first. Stay focused on that. Don't buy a bunch of stuff. Don't buy a bunch of assets. That's because in order to build the business, you need cash. If you take the cash and go to buy assets, when you really shouldn't be, you're sucking the oxygen out of the business. You can't hire anybody. My business is growing. Doesn't matter. Can't hire them because you're putting all your money in assets. You're putting all your money in property. And now you're having to learn a separate skill set. You're just getting good at the investing part, like the income part of investing, whether it's wholesaling, flipping, whatever. And now you're going over here and like, oh gosh, I got 5 rental properties. I got to learn to be a property manager, right?
Yeah.
You're shining a flashlight instead of a laser, right? Shine the laser on a big active income that revolves around real estate, wholesaling, rehabbing, whatever that is. Be a kick-ass agent who's doing a ton of transact, whatever it is. Get that part down first. Then create a level of security for you and your family from a nice cash position. And then and only then do I suggest starting to build a portfolio. So
I could.
probably not what you're used to hearing, but that's my 2 cents.
I was gonna say that I'm used to hearing, the financial freedom is the dream. People are doing this, people are doing that. You can start that today, but I love how real you are, straight to the point. And that's how life is, and that's how real estate is, it's investing time. Like I spoke to an investor yesterday and he was like, real estate is like a basketball game. 98% of the time you're just dribbling a basketball, 2% of the time you're gonna get some of the highlights. But
You're,
that's very
you're gonna
well.
get the dunk every now and then.
Yeah,
But yeah,
exactly.
but think about it, right? Let's say you plug along and you make $150 a year, and then you're taking whatever extra money you got to buy a rental. Like those rentals aren't going to do anything for you for a very, very, very long time, right? And so,
Yeah.
is your focus better on like right away starting to grow a portfolio with a couple doors in it that it really there's very little cash flow. I mean, something goes
Yes.
wrong, there's very little cash flow in rentals. Or do you say, I'm not going to put effort and energy into that? I'm not going to put my excess capital into that. I'm only going to put my effort and energy and excess capital into growing my business and growing my income. Because
For
when you make
sure.
a big income, when you make a big income, you can start to buy assets and you can live like a king at the same time. But if you split your efforts into too many directions initially before you get the big income part, your income is going to stay where it's at, or it's going to grow much, much slower because you're divided.
So increasing your income, having a strategy and patience. So following up on that question, what's one skill or habit that you think every real estate investor or someone that's going to become an investor should develop?
Well, investors is such a big word, right? Like it's different
Uh-huh.
for somebody who's buying hotels versus somebody who's, buying, flipping rental houses. So help me. I'm going to assume that your primary audience is people who are flipping houses and buying rental properties, single
Yeah,
family. Is that
for
fair?
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
One skill set, um, One skill set that they should know. Wow, I don't know, man. You got to have so many to be an entrepreneur. Uh, but I would go back to saying, I mean, sales is always the kind of the go-to, you know? Um, Sales is always the kind of go-to, I think. It's going to serve you in many ways.
For sure. I thought you were going to say something that's like sales related. So on to
Yeah.
my next question. So at Motivated Sellers, like we invest millions to ensure our investors get the best possible off-market deals from homeowners who truly need to sell quickly. But we know that even the best lead won't convert without the right approach or the right sales tactic. What are some ways investors can improve how they can connect with and approach motivated sellers to build trust and close deals more effectively?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, a lot of times if you're getting a deal on a property, that's because there's a problem either with the property or that individual has a property. And I think just truly being compassionate and understanding that there's a human being on the other end of that deal or that transaction or that transition is pretty important. And the more compassionate you are, or the more you teach your sales team to be compassionate, I think the better off that you're going to be. And I have a gentleman in my organization. He's in our CEO level. He's at the top of the heap. Um, he calls it. It's not a transaction. It's a transition. And they don't look at a deal as like, okay, here's how much it is, here's how much you're going to get, and we'll do a deal and we're out, right? They look at it as they understand that the owner is trying to make a transition in their life. What are the ways they can help them with that transition? You know?
Hmm.
That might be like, hey, we'll help you set up your movers. Um, like there could be a variety of things that they would do to help the individual transition. And that requires some compassion and appreciation for where that individual is at, not just, hey, we're trying to get a transaction done.
Well said. So having compassion is, going to build that trust between you and the home seller. So now let's talk a little bit more about strategy. You've seen a lot of creative ways to make money in real estate. What are some of the most profitable or creative strategies shared within your group that you think some of our investors outside of the group should know?
If you're flipping single family homes, I mean, the profit is not necessarily in the deal as much as the profit is going to be the efficiency in which you run the business. Um, and so that is always asking yourself before you get bigger, what can you do better? Right. And an example of that might be like, we talked about paying attention to metrics. If you think about it, there's a funnel involved here. For example, there's a contract to close, right? We sign a contract. What percentage of those deals did we close? Well, okay, if it's 20% initially, okay, well, just try to optimize the business. Let's figure out why we're only closing 20%. Let's try to get it to 30, right? That solution probably won't cost more money. It just will require more efficiency, right? You may look at appointment to contract. Okay, when we go out to an appointment, we are getting a contract on, 48% of those appointments. What do we need to do to get that ratio from 48 to 58? And so really focusing on running the business efficiently will make you, because you're already going on those appointments. So if you figure out how to close more of the existing appointments, you're making more money for the work you're already doing. And that to me, I think is the where the win is rather than, I mean, flipping houses is flipping houses.
For sure.
You know?
Couldn't agree more. Okay, and then on to our last question. What's one last personal piece of advice that you would like to share with our investors that could help them succeed in the whole industry in real estate or in life?
One piece of advice.
Even a quote that you look up to?
Well, yeah, I'm gonna give you a quote. I would share. I would share what my mom always told me, probably the best advice she ever gave me, and I look up to her in a big way. Just four words. That's keep it moving, baby. Life, you're either gonna push or get pushed back. And you, no matter who you are, you're gonna get pushed back. Uh, but you just gotta keep it moving.
For
Gotta
sure.
keep every day up and up and forward. You know, I say we gotta get in the bulldozer today.
I love that.
Yeah, gotta get in the dozer.
For
You can't
sure.
ever. You just have to be brutally tenacious.
Hey, thank you for sharing those wise words. And Jason, it's been a pleasure having you on today and hearing all the valuable insights you've shared with us. I'm sure our audience has gained a lot of from this conversation. Before we wrap up, how can our listeners get in touch with you and learn more about what you do?
Um, if you want to get in touch with us, just go to thecollectivegenius.com. At the top of that page, break down some different descriptions of like where is your business at. And if you want to learn how we can help you specifically based on where you're at, just click the box that resonates with you most based upon the size of your current business, and then it'll redirect you at that point to uh, a landing page that'll share some more information with you.
For sure. Thank you again, Jason.
All right, thank you.
Bye bye.